Hello my friends and fellow VEDSies. Today is day 8 of VEDS, and about a week ago now I was sitting in my room thinking, you know what I haven't done in a long time? Like a long time? I haven't ranked my favorite movies. I mean, the last time I made a list, I was young enough to have an iPod Touch. And so I thought that I would take the time and rework the list and see what has changed and what's still there. And I set the number at top 15 because there are certainly a lot more, but I feel like with 15 we can get a really good snapshot of my tastes. And so here we have my 15 favorite films. Starting with number 15, Sky High. Okay, so immediately, yes, it is a strange one to have on my favorite films list. And yet, it really isn't. I mean, like, yes, it's cheesy. Oh god, it's incredibly cheesy. But if you look at the landscape both for superhero films and teen coming-of-age rom-com movies of the time, it really is a perfect marriage of both of those. You know, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films were coming out around this time, High School Musical came out around this time, and so that tone very much was what people were looking for in the early 2000s. And so it is cheesy, and it wholeheartedly embraces that, which is something I love to see. In addition, they have so much fun with the concept of a high school for superheroes. This isn't the only time we've seen this done, but I feel like they really embraced both what is central to the high school comedy film and the tropes that we expect to see in that, and the settings and characters that we are familiar with the old school comic book elements, and they really created a beautiful fusion. It's also extremely funny with a great cast, and probably the most important to me, it's super earnest. Part of the art of making something silly that is good is that you need to take it seriously to a certain degree. And I think that everyone working on Sky High knew the right balance of seriousness to take it. They're not winking to the camera or rolling their eyes at how dumb some of the things that they're doing are. It's taken seriously within the narrative, which allows us to get better invested in the world. Plus, this movie just has so much iconic stuff going for it. Ron Wilson bus driver, War and Peace, the scene where Layla goes crazy druid. Oh my. It's Sky High. It's wonderful. Number 14, Some Like It Hot. Please don't get mad at me that Some Like It Hot is only one spot above Sky High. I know. Like, historically, it is an important film for where it stands in terms of the Hays Code and censorship and all of those sorts of things, but it's also just like a very good movie. I love to watch these idiots have to walk a mile in women's shoes, so to speak, and we love watching these complicated problems layer on top of each other in regards to their relationships. And then there's the entire plot with the gangsters, and it's such a riot. And really, not enough can be said about this cast. I mean, Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon, Marilyn Monroe, everyone is doing a fantastic job in this. It truly is a classic for a reason. Number 13, Ip Man. So I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I took 4 years of Mandarin, 3 in high school and 1 in college. And like foreign language teachers are wont to do, we watched a lot of movies in those classes, which only intensified my love of martial arts films that has always sort of been there at a low level, just brimming under the surface. You see, my dad likes a couple types of movies. Superhero movies, cowboy movies, gangster movies, 18th century English military movies, and martial arts movies. I grew up in this weird situation where I wasn't allowed to watch SpongeBob, but I was allowed to watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. However, Ip Man is my favorite martial arts film, due in about equal parts to the historical realism and the tone that brings in this particular film, and Donnie Yen being absolutely incredible. It really is just a very well-made movie with a powerhouse star in it, and I really love it. Number 12, Big Hero 6. Listen, this movie has everything. Gorgeous imagery, superheroes, Fall Out Boy, cats, grief, robots, my 15-year-old self's ideal boyfriend, Tadashi Hamada. Like, it's just a wonderful, wonderful film that touches on grief and revenge and friendship and moving forward, and it's so lovely. And I love the city of San Francisco. I think it is gorgeous and inventive, and I love the characters. There's a decent amount to juggle in this film considering the length, but we get a really clear sense of who everybody is very early on, and so we're able to juggle a decently sized ensemble throughout the entire film without really losing track of anybody. And Baymax makes me cry, okay? Like, any movie that makes me really just cry, like weep openly every time I watch it, is a strong contender for the favorites list. And you do not want to be in the building when I'm watching Big Hero 6, because it gets ugly. Which is great, that's what they were trying to do, and it worked. Speaking of movies that made me ugly cry, number 11 is Cinema Paradiso. Now, Cinema Paradiso has a unique spot on this list because it is the only film on here that I have only watched once. I was in a film class in college and it was one of the assigned movies to watch, and I was like, well, this professor has had horrible taste in everything else. I don't know why this one would be any different. Go ahead, do your worst Italian film. And I fell in love with it. Like I already mentioned, I love grief. I also love coming-of-age stories, and child with a lot of problems getting mentored by gruff older person who develops a softer side because of the child is another one I love, and this film has all of them, and at the same time really introduces us to and makes us fall in love with this town and all of the people and its quirks. And so it feels like you have also lived here your entire life, even though obviously we haven't, because it is the 21st century now and we are not in Italy, and also all of this is fictional. But yeah, I was very much enchanted by Cinema Paradiso, and I definitely want to watch it again at some point, but I don't think I'm quite ready yet. However, the sheer impact it had on me meant that it had to make the list. Number 10, Galaxy Quest. So what I was talking about during the Sky High portion of this video, when I said that in order to do comedy well, you have to be extremely earnest, Galaxy Quest is that to its most extreme. Maggie! It would have been so easy to make a parody of Star Trek that was poking fun at the fans and making it like, this is so dumb, why would anybody be dumb enough to like this? And it probably would have done alright, but it would have been mean, and it wasn't what they decided to do. Instead, Galaxy Quest is like, yeah, there's a bunch of silly stuff that happens in Star Trek, and it still is very meaningful to a lot of people. And the fact that those people care about it and dedicate so much time and energy and love to it makes that silly, dumb little show more meaningful than it ever could have been. The show isn't important because of the cast or the studio or any bigwig. It's important because the fans love it. And I think, especially for a pro-nerd revolution era film, that's a really wonderful idea. Plus, it's extremely funny. By not wasting its time making fun of the fans, they have given themselves ample opportunities to poke jokes at other things, like William Shatner's ego and the idea of the Shakespearean thespian actor who got stuck on Star Trek, and the way actors act when they're proposed with a gig, and with incredible writing and possibly one of the most stacked casts I have ever seen, it delivers beautifully. And it still has that sentimental, touching side, so it can tug at your heartstrings as well. Number 9 is Kung Fu Panda. When DreamWorks is good, they are incredible, and I think the Kung Fu Panda trilogy really exemplifies that in a lot of ways. However, I decided that it was cheating to put the whole trilogy in one spot on the list, and so I picked the first movie. Not because the other two aren't incredible. Admittedly, 2 might be an objectively better film. However, Kung Fu Panda 1 is the one that is the most near and dear to my heart. Again, love, love, love martial arts, love gorgeous animation, which this movie is full of, but I think 2 of the things that make this movie in particular so special are, 1, the character of Oogway, who is just such a comforting presence. It really is incredible how much they make this animated turtle feel like the ultimate wise mentor. And then the second is the message. Now, we've heard variations of the special thing was inside of you all along message before, but I think Poe is such a perfect character to have that story and have that arc and have that message. And the older I've gotten, the more I've felt like him. And so this message that there is no secret ingredient, it's inside you already, being Poe's message in Poe's story, really is just wonderful. Number 8, Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. I have very distinct memories of the first time I saw Empire Strikes Back. I was 5, and my dad put the VHS on, and I was just so invested. I hadn't seen A New Hope at that point. Apparently I had liked Phantom Menace as a infant, but this was my first real introduction to Star Wars that I could remember. I mean, I was at the age where I didn't know I am your father at all. I didn't know Darth Vader. And I was so invested. I was on the edge of my seat. I was asking questions. My dad had to pause a couple of times to explain what was going on to me because I didn't quite understand all of it, but I cared so much. And that ability to make me care even when I didn't understand was really special. And I got older and I got the context and I got the lore and I was able to appreciate how special this film truly is. And so it's really a movie that I've been able to grow up with and to understand more and appreciate more with time, and somehow that hasn't diminished my enjoyment of it. You know, I can know how it was made and why certain things are happening and all of these behind the scenes things and lore things and context things, and yet I will still sit there utterly enamored by what's going on and just as invested as I was the first time. Number 7, Singin' in the Rain. Another just incredible movie. My mom took my brother and I to theaters when they did the TCM special event for the 60th anniversary, I believe. And we were the 3 youngest people in that theater. And it didn't matter. It was so bright and colorful and entertaining and engaging, and yeah, we were movie musical kids, but it was really unlike anything we had seen before in that level and getting to see it on the big screen. But then I didn't see it again for a few years. You know, it's one of those movies where it can be easy to just go like, that was a good movie, and not think about it for a while. But I took a film history course my senior year of high school, and so our teacher had a list of films that we were going to watch in release order and making sure we tackled certain genres and that we covered every decade that was in the syllabus. And so Singin' in the Rain was on my syllabus. And the class was admittedly mostly members of the football team who had all joined together because they liked movies and thought it would be fun. And so naturally, a bunch of 17-year-old boys were begging the teacher to not force us to watch a crummy musical and skip to the good stuff. And by the good stuff, they meant The Godfather. And I kept saying, no, this is really good, guys. Trust me. And they said, no, you have the exact opposite taste as we do. Why would we trust you? And I said, trust me, it's going to be great. And the teacher said, well, it doesn't matter if you believe her or not. It's on the syllabus. We got there and they were dreading it. They were just straight up dreading watching this movie. But much to their surprise, they had a great time. In fact, each of them had laughed out loud multiple times before we even got to Lena opening her mouth. And a couple of them said it was their favorite film we watched in that class, aside from The Godfather. But the fact that everyone had a great time and everybody was laughing and everybody was impressed by the dancing and the costumes and all of it really shows the power of just how well made and likable this movie is. It got a bunch of football dudes to admit that I was right. Number 6, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Okay, so admittedly, I had a 30 film list originally. And when I was looking at the 30 film list, I was debating if variety was going to be a priority. And so ultimately I decided that it was fine if there were certain genres that were represented a lot, but I was going to try and be somewhat more diverse. And one of the ways that manifested was I had a spot that I knew was going to be either The Sound of Music, Mary Poppins, or Bedknobs and Broomsticks. This decision is less of a determination of quality. All three of those films are absolutely incredible and I adore them. They made the top 30 for a reason, after all. However, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, especially the director's cut, not the theatrical cut, fuck the theatrical cut, but Bedknobs and Broomsticks really speaks to so many things that I love in terms of plot and in terms of aesthetic and cast. It really is just wonderful, and it's very much my special movie for me and me alone. This film is just very comforting to me, and it's so well made and so warm, and Angela Lansbury and David Tomlinson, both in this film, just radiate such wonderful charisma and talent, and it's so much fun. The animation portions are great, the music is great, the slapstick is great. The slapstick! The scene with bringing the suits of armor to life to fight the Nazis will live in my head till the day I die. It's just an intensely special movie to me. And maybe one day I'll be able to listen to The Age of Not Believing without sobbing again, but not yet. Number 5, The Princess Bride. Perhaps the easiest film on this list to explain. I have never met someone who dislikes The Princess Bride. As a child, I got to be a lot of people's Princess Bride friend, the friend who would recommend it at sleepovers or give it to people for Christmas or something like that and introduce them to this film. And it's just so special in ways that I don't know how to describe. I mean, it's The Princess Bride. Number 4, Casablanca. This was actually another film history class pick, so thanks, Ms. Prabata. You continue to shape my life even 7 years after I've graduated. This is one of those movies with the reputation of being one of the greatest movies of all time, and I am immediately suspicious the moment I hear a movie has that type of reputation. Because sometimes that just means it was historically important for technical reasons. and it's not actually that fun to watch. Casablanca, however, is one of the rare greatest movies of all time that is great largely because of its story and its characters and its music and environment and themes. Going in, I knew that it was a dramatic, noir-y love story with a sad-ish ending, but I didn't know how likable it was going to be, or how fun it was going to be. It really is justified in being considered one of the greatest movies of all time, and it really just moves me every time. Number 3, The Prince of Egypt. Again, when DreamWorks does it right, they do it so right. Honestly, this is another one that is kind of hard to explain because it should just sort of be a no-brainer if you've seen it. The animation, the writing, the music, the cast, the way they handle a story that, at least for me, having grown up in Catholic school, I'd heard a million times, and finding the human element of it, the idea of centering it on the conflict between brothers and emphasizing that relationship above anything else, really makes this tragedy something it usually isn't. And the immensely talented team at DreamWorks was able to make something so human and real and yet so epic, and not just in the adventure way, but in the spiritually moving way. I mean, I'm not really religious anymore, but this movie feels like a religious experience. It tackles the big stuff and the small stuff equally well, and is remarkable in doing all of it. Number 2, Meet Me in St. Louis. First off, the aesthetics of Meet Me in St. Louis are my dream aesthetics. I love turn-of-the-century Victorian vibes. It's one of my favorite looks, and this movie is very much a part of that. There are so many phenomenally talented people who worked on this. It's kind of astounding to see how well this movie is made. This one was another one that we had on VHS that we would watch, and I always had very complicated feelings about Meet Me in St. Louis. It confused me a lot, which might sound crazy if you haven't seen this film. I mean, 1940s movie musicals generally aren't confusing, but in certain moments in this film, there's so much emotion, and emotions that are harder to put words to that are depicted, and that's part of what makes it so special to me. There are these scenes with these really difficult to describe but palpable emotions. I'm particularly referring to You and I and Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas in this moment, because there is so much happening, and yet it's so simple and so well done that even as a child I understood and didn't understand it at the same time. And that has continued as I've grown older and begun to understand more and more of it, yet there's still something about this film that I can't really put words to, and that is immensely special. And my number 1 favorite film is... Oh wait, you actually needed me to tell you? Guys, come on, it's Beauty and the Beast. I'm being silly because it is obvious to everyone who knows me well. However, Beauty and the Beast really, truly is such a special film for me. My relationship with it has grown and changed and evolved over the years, from the enjoyment and engagement of a little child to this really kinship with some of the creators and the process and the sound and the feel and the look of this film. I have studied this and read and watched and listened to interviews and all of this research into how and why of this film, and it will never be enough. This movie is the most beautiful, the most important, the most resonant piece of art I think I have ever experienced, and it's my favorite. There's so much to say, but I mean, the movie kind of says it for me. It's my favorite. Far off places, daring sword fights, magic spells, a prince in disguise. I did not think that would make me cry, and yet. So yes, my friends and fellow VEDSies, these are my 15 favorite films. I am very excited to hear what your thoughts are on them and to hear maybe what some of your favorite films are. But I have like an hour of footage to edit now, so my friends and fellow VEDSies, I'll see you tomorrow.